So I'll start with the cap. This is the cap of the skull, the top of the thing here. I pour the plaster in there. You know, there's all kinds of things that I would do a lot differently if I were doing this project again. One of which is I would move where all of the, for most of the molds, I would move where I'm pouring the plaster in. I would put all of that on one of the seams. So I would find a way to, instead of putting these here, I would put them back here. It would just make the thing look better when it came out. It'd probably make it easier to take it out of the mold also, if all of that stuff was on a seam. I did that later on as I was doing the ribs and some other things. I was doing that, but I probably would have started with that from the beginning if I had this to do over again. I also probably would have started a lot earlier if I had this to do over again. So right now I'm scraping off clay, which is on there to keep the liquid plaster from leaking out when I pour it in. Then I have this little handle that I built into it here. So I pop this apart. And this is the plaster mother mold. This comes off. And then this is the actual mold here, the silicone. So then I sort of loosen up the seal around here, get some air in there, and then I peel this apart. This stuff, this like sort of blue-green silicone, this is Umu 25. That is not the right stuff to use for a project like this, in my opinion. I mean, some people might love it, but the cure time on this silicone is a lot shorter than on the Umu 30, which is the purple stuff that you saw back in the other mold, the ribs. This stuff, the package says it has a pot life of 15 minutes, which is actually closer to 10 minutes, or maybe even under that, depending on how you mix it and whatever atmospheric conditions and stuff. So that means that it's gonna start curing very, very soon. And the way that you have to make these things is you have to pour them in a very thin stream. The thin stream sort of stretches out all the bubbles. And because you have to pour it into a thin stream, it takes a while to pour it into this into the cavity that you build up here for it. So what I was finding out, the problems that were happening with this is that it would start to cure midstream, and then I would get a big clump of this stuff that would sort of come down and block up the hole, and then I had all kinds of problems. I had to drill holes into a lot of these things. So you can see on this mold here, I had to drill all of these holes into it and then pour more silicone in there to try to seal up a giant bubble that had formed. So when I initially poured the silicone in through this hole, it only filled up like this area here, and everything over here and everything over here was empty. It was just a big air bubble because the stuff had started curing too early. So I had to drill these holes, and that's why when I poured it in to those holes here to sort of fill up these two areas, it's still a little bit irregular. I mean, it's good enough. It's been working okay, you know, but it's still a little bit messed up. The reason that we were using that, though, is because when the theater ordered the silicone, Smooth On sent them the wrong product. And I don't know, I had done this kind of stuff on a much smaller scale, so I didn't think it would be that huge of a deal to have the cure time be off like that, but it turned out to be a giant issue. And then I I ended up having to buy like a whole lot of the proper silicone to end up finishing these things because there was a ton of waste because this stuff was curing so fast. So now I'm like just sort of picking out some plaster around here, and then this is the best tool in history, by the way. This is a pointed file with a red handle, and I use this for absolutely everything that I do. I put that in there, and then I just kind of crack the little plaster bit, and then take a tongue depressor, which are also the best tools in history, and slip that between the mold. See. Now it's breaking, and it's breaking because I'm recording this, because it makes me want to look like I know even less about what I'm doing than I already don't know. Anyway, put the tongue depressor in here and get another one in somewhere else to sort of A, get some air down between the plaster and the silicone, and B, help to sort of pry out the thing. And then with my other hand I'm kind of pressing, I'm inserting the handle of the red handled thing into where I poured the plaster, and I'm sort of pressing up from the bottom. And then it pops out. And ordinarily this never breaks, but for some reason, again, because I'm filming it, it's decided to break on me. So I'll show you what we do when we break them. And again, I'm not really, freaking out about them being broken because they're built to be broken, just like the rest of us. So, if it breaks a little bit, whatever, and just glue it back together with some of this Gorilla Glue. Out of Gorilla Glue. And there we are. So when this dries, the Gorilla Glue, it's going to expand. So then we just break off all of the little bits that expand out of the crack. And then this little section here, I'll just fix that with some spackle and nobody will ever notice. It'll be great. Leave that off to the side. Pop this out. Clear out all the plaster bits. Cool. So before I put this one back together, there's little bits of plaster that end up accumulating around the edges here, and there's also some clay, so I would go around and I would scrape all of that off. And then you notice that everything's pretty shiny. Maybe, I don't know, the lighting is a little bit weird, but maybe you can see that. That's all Vaseline. You gotta spread Vaseline on it also to make sure that any plaster that comes out of the edge of this silicone, if it gets into this plaster, you make sure that it won't become fixed to that plaster, that it won't cure to this plaster, by using silicone as a mold release agent, or Vaseline as a mold release agent.